you men and women who serve this land to give us the freedoms that we have. Is I hope in your training and in your instruction, you have given the sound ways of reasoning, induction, deduction, laws of non-contradiction, laws of rational inference. We assume these. If you don't learn the fundamentals of logic and reasoning, you will end up in illogic and irrationality. A student at the University of Iowa stood up once and shouted at me from the microphone. She said, "Whoever told you life needed to be coherent?" Said, "Where do you get this idea from? Is this another one of our Western ideas that we dominate the world with? That we need coherence?" And I let her talk, I've learned over the years, if you let anybody talk long enough, they end up convicting themselves. So finally I said to her, I said, "Ma'am, I appreciate what you're saying. Can you just help me with one thing before I answer you? Do you want my answer to be coherent?" She goes like this. Imagine we are in a day in the academy where they actually deny the law of non-contradiction. They don't believe the law of non-contradiction, that you cannot make two mutually exclusive affirmations and suppose both of them to be true at the same time in the same sense. You may as well describe a one-ended stick. How do you even picture things like that? And so, we had better learn to think. If physics violates metaphysics in its extrapolations, then we ask you this: would you want a postmodernist for your pilot? I know this is what the instrument says. I know this is what the control tower says, but I am a postmodernist. I'm going to deconstruct everything. It will be himself. You have to have the laws of logic that apply to reality. If the laws of logic don't apply to reality, our conversation is pointless. Most people don't know how to think. Number 3, let me point this out to you. The ultimate test of any civilization is what we do with our children. That was the 3rd consequence. The ultimate test of any civilization is what we do with our children. Now, can I ask you this? Where do we stand on that? Where do we stand? I look at my boy Nathan, who's now 6'1½", bigger than I am. And when he was a little boy, he asked me if I would register him in T-ball. I didn't know what he meant. I thought I'd go and watch him play ball and they'd serve me tea. I grew up with cricket in India, and I'd never seen T-ball. Little did I know what I was signing up for. I was signing up for not just sacrifice, but also for mercy. Where no boy ever misses in 5 tries, and no fielder ever finds the ball until somebody has done all the running they needed to do and come all the way back home. But you get them a uniform to do that. And you give them a helmet that has to blind them in their vision. The ball looks so good. And I remember he did things that nobody ever taught him to do. He would run the base after his hit, which would be about the 3rd or 4th whack, and thank God he had mercy on us by limiting it to 5 innings and 5 runs per inning per team, or the game would never be over. And I'd be standing under the tree watching him. He'd smite that ball, run to the base, do what the coach had told him to do, get into this, and he'd look towards the tree where I was standing to see if I'd seen him do that, and he'd go like that and say, "Did you see that, Dad?"
Aww.
Your children are looking for heroes and affirmation and approval. Now we are plunging them into the world that is saying it's amoral, no value of any kind, where the media is bombarding them to soil their imagination. Materialism takes over. You watch them grow up and you say, "Lord, protect my kids." What we do with our children. Let me quickly race through. My time is just about gone. I'm sorry I took that long, but the second side of it is Josiah. Josiah came in at the age of 8. At the age of 16, he began to hunger after God. At the age of 20, he began to cleanse the nation once again. And he brought the ultimate restoration that people could imagine. With just two things. He gave back to them the law of the Lord. He gave them the book of the law. What is it that makes you do what you do? You are protecting the laws of this land. That's what you do. Because you believe we are a people of laws. We are a people that believe in the things we lay claim to. And the ultimate law is secondary to the moral law. The moral law of who you and I essentially are. He gave to them the Ten Commandments. You know, there's one word that summarizes the Ten Commandments. It is this: sacredness. Your life is sacred. My life is sacred. Your word is sacred. My word to be sacred. My marriage is sacred. My time is sacred. My worship is sacred. My property is sacred. You may not violate that, and I may not violate yours. I often say this, which makes it absolutely unique in any worldview. If you've heard me say it on the air, please pardon me for the repetition. It is this. Do you know when a man came to Jesus and said, "Is it all right to pay taxes to Caesar?" I really wish Jesus had answered that differently. Especially as it now looms in a few days again. It'd been wonderful if Jesus had said, "Absolutely not." And when April 15 comes with civil disobedience, you could look spiritual at the same time. Jesus said to him, "Do you have a coin in your pocket?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Give it to me." And he looked at the coin and he said, "Whose image do you see on this?" The man says, "Caesar." Jesus said, "Give to Caesar that which belongs to Caesar." Jesus didn't end there. He said, "And give to God that which belongs to God." The man ought to have had a follow-up question. The follow-up question should have been, "What belongs to God?" And Jesus' answer would have been, "Whose image is on you?" Amen. Whose image is on you? That's what the Ten Commandments are all about. That's really what the Ten Commandments are all about. The Imago Dei. You shall have no other gods before me. All the way through the Ten Commandments, the word sacred is threaded through that. And that's why when he was asked, which are the greatest commandments? You see, Moses gave us 613. That's why he asked the question. Jesus didn't say one. He said, "There's two. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength and mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." He said, "On these two hang all of the laws of the prophets." My privileged position of sacredness before God and my responsibility to you as one who is also made in the Imago Dei. Other worldviews can violate you in justification of their worldview. Can't do that. And so I say to you, he gave them the book of the law, and the second thing he gave them is the privilege of worship. I won't take time to tell you that. To worship him in spirit and in truth. Three things happen. I'll just build them there, mention them quickly. Number one, he builds within you the conviction of safety. When you do that, it builds within you the conviction of safety. It's like during the Korean War. Billy Kim, the Korean speaker, tells the story of one of the American soldiers who had been commanded to go and rescue his fallen mates, and he kept hesitating and hesitating and looking at his watch. And finally, when he saw the watch at a certain time, he ran out to rescue his fallen mates, and somebody said to him, "What on earth were you doing looking at your watch when you were told to do such and such?" He said, "I was terrified, frozen. I'm not right with God. But my mother told me what time every day she would be praying for me." At that time, I knew, covered under my mother's prayers, I would be fine. You know, I'll never forget when I was in Qatar, some of our choice men and women